All right, so hey, tonight is the three biggest dating and marriage myths in today's world. And these myths, you've probably heard of some of these, a couple of these myths. One maybe you haven't heard of, but they're pretty well documented in terms of the relationship experts out there. I can't recall the guy on the West Coast, a husband and a wife. They kind of set the standard on relationship stuff. And they've documented it. Stanley has documented it as a pastor. Other people have documented it. And I'm going to go into detail on it so you can avoid misery. I don't care if you're dating, engaged, or married. If you believe these myths, you're going to be in trouble. And I'm in front of the line in believing these myths for a very, very long time. And even though I know they're myths now, oh really? America's Got Talent winner. I had no idea. I'll check them out. I hope to check them out. Even though I know they're missed now, I still get suckered into them. And you're going to see, yeah, Gottman. There you go, Gail. I've never met Gottman, but I know a lot of people look to Gottman. So if you're going to experience what I call the ultimate marriage or an exciting marriage or a happy marriage or happily ever after, if you want to date someone that you are going to amplify massive love and have the greatest love story, so to speak, you got to know what these myths are, because even after you date, once you're in marriage, you can get suckered by these myths and it's going to lead to misery. And what's dangerous about a myth is that people believe myths are true. They don't call them myths. They call them facts or truths, but it's the wrong information, and even a slight misinformation can take you way off course. And so I literally believe millions of people have taken this wrong information, this myth, and they've sprinkled it with some God, they've sprinkled it with spirituality, they sprinkled it even with data and experience, and they believe it's going to lead to happily ever after. And it just, in my experience, it has never, ever led to happily ever after. In fact, it's led to a lot of misery for a lot of people. And if you've talked to marriages, a lot of people feel stuck. And I won't go into the date on that, but they do. They feel like it's dead. And they're waiting for the kids to move out of the house to see what they're going to do. So before I tell you the first myth, type below, use words, 1 word, 3 words, 15 words to describe the right person for you. Whether you're married or single, myths can be very dangerous because people believe they're true. Type below words that you believe would match the right person for you. And you may be married and feel like they're not the right person now, or they are the right person, whatever you want to do there. Could be beautiful, big-hearted, kind, loving, millionaire. What is it for you? Words to describe the right person that would get you to the ultimate marriage experience. Let's see what you type. My husband is my standard. All right, but that's nice to say. I hope my wife would say that. She usually sneaks up here about halfway through. If she does, I'll have her jump in. What are some words? Sweet, generous, breathtaking, good kisser, comparable, encouraging, belief in God, honest. Yeah, we did a study at the University of Illinois on relationships for, took about 1,000 students in data, and we asked them to rank in order what the most important thing that they need for a relationship. And we had people who were white, African American, Hispanic, you name it, across the board, male, female. They all agreed that trust and honesty had to be number one. That's not a myth. That's like fact. Everybody needs that. Okay, compassionate, someone I can be myself around and gets me. Okay, I love that phrase. Has a great sense of humor, sweet, encouraging, compatible, faithful, loyal, God-honoring. All right. So I ask you that because the first myth is, hey Kathy, hey Mary, the first myth is what's called the perfect person, or what Gottman or Stanley or others have rightly called the right person myth. And that is, it means this: once you meet the right person, everything's going to be all right. Has anybody ever felt that way? Once I meet the right person, everything will be all right. Okay, equally yoked, Christian, honest, adventurous, compassionate, forgiving. Gail's got a good list there. Animal lover, interest. What if they're an animal lover but allergic to animals? Okay, Natalie says, nope, such a lie. But a lot of people believe this, that there is a right person myth. Now, a lot of people have believed the myth that there's only one person for them, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's more of an obvious misnomer, because people are like, I'm not too sure that there's only one person out of billions of people. But people still believe that because they say God selected one person just for me. I believed that for a good 25 years of my life. But the right person myth says there could be multiple people, but once I meet that right person, the right one, then everything will be all right. But if you ask a married person, they chuckle at that because they're like, that's not accurate. And add to it that our culture, at least in America, and I'm pretty sure in Europe and other countries, maybe not as much in the Islamic culture, but perhaps with men it's the case, but women aren't allowed to. They believe that they can do whatever they want in promiscuity, sexually, dating, because between now and meeting the right person, you can do whatever you want, because once you meet the right person, then everything's just fine. In fact, everything that I just did over the last 10 years, it's cool to believe that God has someone for you. It doesn't mean that there's only one person out there. I mean, you can distinguish even between those two theologies. So what people do is they play and they mess around and they toy with other people, and they think that all of that's just going to evaporate and it's not going to matter at all. But what happens is people end up marrying somebody, and then they slowly begin to realize, hey, I thought I married the right person, but maybe I married the wrong right person. And now who are people looking for? They're looking for the next right person. And the more people I talk to that have dated longer than 6 months or are married, they start to believe that, hey, I think I really did marry the right person, but maybe I married the wrong right person, because there could be multiple right people out there for you, but you married the wrong right person. That they're cool, they're awesome, I wish them well. It doesn't have to be a big upsetting thing. It's going to be painful to separate, but I'm going to go marry the right person this time. And what's happening is this gets into our subconscious and in even our logical thinking, and it sabotages our happiness. We can't be happy this way because we're always doubting what we're in and what we have, and it fuels people's relationship decisions. And we continue to say things like, I'm unhappy because I was with the wrong person, or I am with the wrong person, or this could be the wrong person. And so I just need to continue to look around and find the right person. And once you find them, everything's going to be fine. And that includes dating, right? If you don't do the work first on yourself, you'll continue to find people and then say, well, that's the wrong right person, or I thought they were the right person. And if that sounds confusing, we'll get around to it through the back door to help you out here. But the deeper part of the myth is, not only will the relationship be fine once I marry the right person. Kathy said I married the wrong person more than once due to my low self-esteem. So she's taking responsibility. You get it? The only way to true freedom and true success in anything in life, including a relationship, is to take 100% complete total responsibility, which most people will never do because it feels like pressure, but really it's liberating because now I'm in control of my situation. So the deeper part of the myth is, not only do you think, hey, once I find the right person, then everything will be fine with our relationship, but now everything will be fine with me. My insecurities will just somehow go away. My financial missteps will just go away. My lack of responsibility will be all solved. Hi, Joanne. And everything that's a problem with Aaron will now be fixed because somebody fixed me. That is not true. There's no way that's true. That's never happened for anybody. But it's an idea that gets into our decisions about dating, about marriage, about staying in marriage. And Lola says she's broken and married before allowing healing to take place in my life. Yeah, you know what? Most people are. Most people are getting married at 19, 20, 21, 20, 23. And they're just not ready. Right? And they don't know what they're doing. In fact, I married a great couple, because I officiate weddings. And it was a beautiful ceremony, and somebody sat down with me afterwards, and he was in his 60s at the time. I've never seen the guy since. And he said, Aaron, that was the best ceremony, because I just told a story. I don't preach a ceremony. I tell a story. And he said, that was just a wonderful ceremony. But they're not ready, are they? And I didn't think that they weren't ready. I thought, hey, yeah, sure they're ready. But he had some wisdom there, and he could see that they weren't ready. And this idea of not being ready, we're just marrying before we're whole and healed. And the only way you're ever going to be happy is if you're whole and this other person is growing and being whole, and you come together and you start amplifying your already happiness. And it's a synergistic happiness, which means it compounds even more. So one happiness plus one happiness is just one happiness on their own. But when they come together, it's more than two because it compounds. It's synergistic. But what happens is we think about our future and we think, if only I could be with so-and-so, then I would be happy. If only I could be with that person, then I would be happy. If I'm single, if only I married a person like that, then I would be happy. We have to be very careful about that because it fuels our fantasies. And there's nothing wrong with fantasies except that it may not have 100% accuracy to it. And the fantasies that are fueled is we never sit down and think, oh, I fantasize about becoming the right person. I fantasize about getting into a relationship where I am so happy. I fantasize about being in a relationship where I open up the door for her, that I cherish her, that I always pick up the bill and I man up. I just can't wait to listen to her stories again and again and again. I want to grow into that kind of person. I just want to help her out of her bed, and I want to make her breakfast, and I want to take out the trash, and I want to provide for her. I want to grow. I'm not that person yet, but I just fantasize about becoming that person. We never do that. We fantasize, right, about what we can get and extract from that person. Oh, that person's going to give me the money, or that person's going to give me sex, or that person's going to give me the respect that I need. That person, we don't say it this way, but what we're feeling is that person is going to make me whole and healed and happy. But we think by finding them or being found that it's going to just take care of itself because they're the right person for us. But there's so much more to it than finding somebody. But of course, that doesn't make for great radio or TV or podcast, right? But what happens on TV? Like someone's trying to get me to watch The Bachelor. I think maybe I mentioned, I'm not going to watch The Bachelor. I can never see myself watching The Bachelor. But I think it's like on what season is it on? Like 17 or something like that. What makes great reality TV is what? They start having romantic feelings. And then they fall in love. And it's so beautiful, right? But then what happens? What happens as soon as they fall in love? Can somebody answer? On reality TV, they fall in love. Then what happens as soon as they fall in love? Somebody respond below. It could be The Bachelor, The Notebook, which, by the way, I cried watching The Notebook. Who can guess what happens as soon as people fall in love in reality TV? What normally happens in the show? Do they kiss? Do they hold hands? Okay, so Kim believes I started. They're disillusioned. Nope, that's not true. Not on reality TV. They get invested. They get too invested and drama happens. That's not what happens on reality TV. They cheat. I don't think that's what happens on reality TV. Here's what happens. The movie ends. It's over. The credits roll because now they are in love. And that makes for great TV. And the rest of us are like, oh man, why can't I have that kind of life? Or if I could only married so-and-so, or if I could only have that girl make love to me that way, or if I could only have that guy provide for me that way, or if she would just look, if my wife would get dressed like that, or if my husband would take responsibility like that, then I would be happy. So what happens is they do on The Bachelor. Okay, so they cheat on The Bachelor. Maybe Hallmark Channel. Yeah, my wife used to watch the Hallmark Channel. I don't know. I don't watch The Bachelor. But here's a better solution. And again, this is well documented out there. And maybe you've heard me say it too. It's in my World Class Couples Academy over and over again. The better solution to happiness, at least from in my experience, is to become the person that the person I'm looking for is looking for. Become the person that the person I'm looking for is looking for. What I mean by that is so if I was single and I wanted to attract some great woman into my life, since I'm heterosexual, I would want to become, I would see, what kind of person do I want to be with? Well, then I need to become that kind of person, because no way she's going to like me or be attracted to me for marriage if I remain as I am. So I need to become just like that consistently, and that will, because you always attract who you are and not what you want. And in the same way for marriage, I still ask the same question. Am I still who she thought she was marrying now? Or do I need to keep growing into something else? Because we all evolve as our skin sheds, our brain thinks differently, we come to new ideas, we meet new people, there's deaths and family and friendships. We're constantly evolving, right? But the culture keeps telling us that if we find the right person, everything's going to be just fine and just all right. But the truth is we need to become the right kind of person, because that's so empowering and liberating. And now our happiness is not dependent upon somebody else. And when we succumb to this myth that there's one right person or even multiple right people out there, we assume that they're going to make us happy and that we're going to have all our insecurities and all our pain and all our lacking made whole and made perfect, and everything is going to be all right. And all the bad stuff is just going to disappear just like that. But I got a news flash for you. No matter who we marry, no matter who we date, unless we become whole and happy on the inside, we can't amplify happiness with another person. We're just going to constantly steal and take from each other as we move in under the same roof. And you know, if you've been married, that can happen. So here's a question. Answer below. Are you the person, for you singles? You singles, answer this. Are you the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? Yes or no? Are you the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? And then I have a question for married people. Okay, Tammy, I'm glad I'm a different person now than when I was married in my youth. Yeah. And most people, I might get in trouble saying this, most people are different now than when they were 20 years old when they got married. Nobody knows what they're doing. And now they would do it different. Okay, so you guys are the person. Great, that's awesome. So you're ready to go then. Because if you're not, I say take a year and get to become that person. Otherwise, you are heading for a train wreck because you're not ready to marry that person and you're going to be in trouble. So if you're married, are you still the person they were looking for, that they were hoping for when they married? Or have you allowed life and work and jobs and busyness and kids, or grandkids, or success or failing or stuff get in the way of what your spouse thought they were entering a relationship with? So are you still the person that they were hoping for, dreaming about, and wanting, or have you allowed life to get in the way? Answer below. So Gail's becoming that person. That was my goal for the 29th, and I'm achieving my goal. Way to go, Gail. Way to go. I'm ready. Can't find a man that's ready. Okay, they're out there. They might be limited, but they're out there. So that's the question I want you to be thinking about in this first myth, because this myth will make you miserable. People are constantly fantasizing about finding the right person. I don't care if you're married. Like, I guarantee you, my wife fantasizes about being with another man every now and then because she's a human being. We all succumb to this myth that someone else is going to complete us. This Jerry Maguire movie, which was awesome. You complete me. You really don't complete me. I mean, it sounds romantic, and then they get together at the end, right? So the happier option is to become that person and to challenge your significant other or person that you're getting to know to become that person so that you can amplify your happiness. Pandy and I are happiest when we're both individually happy, right? So, question, has anyone ever been suckered in by that myth that if I just find the right person, everything will be all right? Yes or no? Has anyone been suckered into that? I'm like, oh, that sounds right. Everything will be all right if I just find the right person. Man, that sounds right. That sounds good. I think I've seen too many movies. So that's the first myth. Let me know if you've ever been suckered into that, and I'll get to myth number 2. Professor, no. Tammy, yes. Okay, so myth number 2 is what people call the promise myth. And the promise myth is to experience a beautiful relationship, we just need to make this grandiose promise to each other. So let me ask you a question. Has anyone promised you that they would be a great partner to you and it didn't work out? I made promises to my wife and I failed to live up to my promises sometimes. Probably, I've been faithful and all that, so maybe not extreme, but yes, Kathy says yes. I probably thought that when I got married in my early 20s, okay? Now, the flip side to this on that first myth is you don't want to get disenchanted. You don't want to get discouraged because I didn't give you a big practical positive takeaway. I'm just saying avoid the myth, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Okay, so I'm seeing some yeses here. So the promise myth is this. It's crazy that our culture does this, and I'm guilty of it as a person who officiates weddings, is we act like a promise replaces a need for preparation and patterns. That if we can just commit and promise and vow, just take these vows, our way into each other's lives, we'll have a successful marriage forever. And if we believe that we have this promise and then we throw a party for everybody who just observed our promise at a wedding ceremony, and the bigger the promise, the bigger the party, everything's going to be okay. I mean, I have attended a wedding ceremonies where the party was like, oh my gosh, they literally had to have spent $50,000 to $100,000. Talk about a party. They knew how to party. And their promises were beautiful because I was standing right there as they made the promises. And I can tell you, by the way, I've spoken to crowds of thousands and thousands of people all at once, but nothing is as intimidating as having a bride right in front of you. It's nerve-wracking. The first time I did it, my hands were shaking like this. And I've spoken all over the world, but I just saw the bride coming at me. I had the Bible in my hand and my notes, and my hands were shaking like this. The groom had to put his hand and hold the book. Because the promises, you don't want to mess up the promises. They're so pretty. But listen, promises are no substitute for preparation. And I'm not talking about prepare yourself for some horrible thing. I'm talking about prepare yourself for happiness. And we know this in every area of our lives except for marriage. In academics, we never say, you know what, I just promise that I'm going to get an A, and I never study. I never prepare. I never have the right patterns. No volleyball coach would sit down with his or her team and say, okay, team, we're never going to have any preparation. We're never going to practice spiking or bumps or running or any volleyball practices. What we're going to do is just promise that we're going to win some championships. We're never going to prepare. No, you would never play for that coach. We don't do it in academics. We don't do it in sports. We don't do it in finances. What we do it in is marriage. This is insanity. So better than promises. Promises aren't bad, but they're no substitute for patterns. What are the patterns in a person? Meaning their consistent behavior. And what preparation have they done? Right? So there's somebody in our group who asked me to officiate their wedding. They're not on tonight. They've been on every other night. And I'm going to officiate their wedding. But I won't officiate their wedding unless they go through preparation with me. Right? And because nobody's teaching people how to have a great relationship. Schools don't teach it, which is insane. Parents don't teach it because they're unhappy in their marriages. The church rarely does it. And when they do, it's like, what are you talking about? You're not being real with me. And so we're just taught, hey, look, if you fall in love with the right person and make a promise and throw a party, everything's going to be great and it's all going to take care of itself. Now, the good news is if you found yourself in a bad spot or you're married and you're just kind of in a rut, it can get better. But just because you say, I do, and recall, hey, honey, remember when we said I do? It doesn't mean that you can. And it just means that you're now committed to trying. And if you've been to weddings, you've seen people who said I do, but you're like, oh my gosh, they're not prepared. Saying I do just makes you accountable. It does not make you capable. And when you're accountable to another human being, but you're not capable in making it succeed, you're going to be miserable. And that's why a lot of people are miserable, because they're not capable. They've never prepared. And when I'm miserable, it's because I'm not practicing what I know I need to be practicing, even though I am prepared. My patterns are off a little bit. But if you never get prepared, or if you aren't preparing, you'll never be prepared. Right? I know that sounds like common sense, but common sense isn't common practice. So Tamar says, I'm teaching about relationships right now in my curriculum. Very cool. Well, add some stuff. Help us out. So if you're in a relationship, but you don't feel loved or loving, it can be fixed. What's up, beautiful?
Hello.
You want to say hi to everybody?
Sure. Oh, we're all there.
Right there. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, say it a little bit louder. Yeah, say who you are. Let me ask you a question. Come over here. What's your name?
Penelope.
You have to come down a little bit. So Penelope, do you have a boyfriend?
No.
Do you have a crush on anyone?
No.
No one?
Besides you?
Ah, me. Okay. Are you allowed to have a boyfriend?
No.
No, not at all. Okay. So they're just sneaking in on me here. So that's myth number 2. You have to be careful about this myth, man. We promised each other. And so you may get in a fight in your marriage one day, and they're going, you promised me. Yeah, we all promised. But you can respond, hey, have we prepared? Do we know how? Like, it's not normal to be fighting like this. How do we get through this? We need some help. How old is she? How old is she? 9. So the third one is the pleasure myth. The pleasure myth. And the pleasure myth says that there's somebody out there who can bring me ultimate and final fulfillment and satisfaction. If I just had her, then. If my spouse just did this or looked like that or wore this, then I would be happy and ultimately satisfied. If he just made 6 figures or 7 figures, or if we had lifestyle freedom, or if he had that kind of confidence, then, right? So what's something that you may say in your mind that if kind of goes like this. If a man that did this or was like this, then I would have really ultimate satisfaction. Or if I just had a woman, if she would just do this, or if my spouse would just do this, or behave like this, then I would finally feel loved. Type below if something comes to mind. What I want to do is help with that. So here's a story. There was a story of two brothers, and I read about this in a Jewish book. The older brother's name was Esau, and the younger brother's name was Jacob. And the age, when I tell you that story, the age makes a big difference, and it matters here. Because the older brother in the Jewish culture got the prized possession, which was the inheritance. Why is the inheritance a big deal? It brought three big things in that culture. This story is so relevant, by the way, to your relationship and your future relationship and your current relationship. The inheritance brought three things back in that day. One, you got the money and the real estate and the land. Number two, you got the judicial power. So if a family member had a problem with each other, they came to you and you got to settle the matters. You acted as judge and jury in the court system. And number three, they saw you as having some kind of divine, mysterious blessing. So they didn't question your power or money or resources because the hand of God was supposedly on you. So Esau is the oldest child, and he's well on his way to get daddy's inheritance. Then one week, Esau was out hunting, and he was so hungry because he didn't catch anything that he was like starving, or he thought he was starving. And he got back into the village or the camp, and he could smell his favorite food being cooked. And he followed his belly because maybe he was stumbling, maybe he was crawling. He was just really hungry. Stumbled his way into the tent, and there was a big pot of stew being stirred by none other than his little brother. And his little brother sees him down there on the ground. And the stew, it smells so good. The stew looks so good. And he can kind of taste the stew before it even got into his mouth. You know, when you walk into a restaurant, you can just like taste it. It smells good. It feels good. You know it's going to taste delicious. And the older brother, Esau, was like, please, younger brother, give me some stew. Give me some stew. So what does Jacob do? Jacob responds the same way any younger brother would respond to the older brother who needs something from the younger brother. Guess how younger brothers respond? Here's how they do it. Here's how I did it. I got the power, right? And so the younger brother is going to do what they call barter. They're going to barter with the older brother. I wonder if I can get something out of my older brother while I got a little bit of leverage and a little bit of power, because I look up to my older brother. All younger brothers do. And so he begins to barter. And I remember that's what I did with my older brother, right? And so I would say things, hey, can I go cruising with you? No. Can I borrow your shirt? No. Can I stand at your locker? No. Can I do this? No. Because no older brother wants the younger brother, who's like a fly, he's trying to swat him out of the way, around all the time. Well, it's the same dynamic with Jacob and Esau. So Esau says, man, I am so hungry. Please, 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 please give me a bowl of stew. I'm really hungry. I've been out there for a week. I couldn't find anything. I feel like I'm dying. So Jacob says, I'll make you a deal. You can see what's coming, right? I'll give you a bowl of my stew, of this tasty, delicious, filling bowl of stew. It is good if you hand over your inheritance. And the story says that Esau says yes. Now, when I read that, I thought this is the worst trade in world history, worse than the Babe Ruth trade. Because with the inheritance comes the money, the power, the land, the divine, mysterious blessing, everything. It's the worst trade in history. Who would do such a thing? Who would ever make a trade like that? Who would trade everything that they have, everything that they've prayed for, and everything in their future for a bowl of stew? You would. I would. We all would, if it was the right bowl of stew. Right? Singles and married couples do this all the time. And the pleasure myth says that there's someone out there that brings ultimate satisfaction and pleasure to my life. And they get this pleasure from someone they shouldn't get it from. That's their bowl of stew. Right? Through flirting, through fun, through feeling good. And they trade everything that they have for a one-night stand. They trade everything they have for a week. Or singles. They trade their standards in just to be with somebody, to avoid the loneliness. I have people emailing me, texting me, hey, he's sleeping around. Should I stay with him? I'm like, what are you thinking? No, right? So they give up their faith. They give up all the things in their life that they worked so hard for a bowl of stew. This is the pleasure myth, right? Someone or something out there is going to bring me ultimate satisfaction. And the reason why we fall for a silly bowl of stew is for two reasons. One is focalism. And focalism is the brain hones in and grows the good qualities of something specific. In this case, probably a person. And your brain begins to only find references to what's meaningful to meet your needs. And the second thing is called impact bias, because your brain gets so laser focused on this one good qualities about this one person, it impacts what you think. So whereas this situation of you going out with this person that you shouldn't be going out with, or daydreaming or fantasizing about them, is really about a 4, given all the consequences that are going to happen, you think that she or he is like an 8 or a 9. It's an impact bias. Your brain is lying to you. This is through psychological studies. This is what psychologists call impact bias. So what happens is romance and attraction, they create a fog. They create a fog. And these myths, the right person myth, the promise myth, and the pleasure myth, they have taken, the grass may look greener until you have to keep it watered. Yeah. And maybe it's greener over there because there's more poop. Right? Grass is greener where you water it. So just water your own grass, right? But a lot of people have been taken out by the pleasure myth because it feels so true. Oh my gosh, it feels so good to feel the chemistry, right? Well, there are ways to renew your chemistry and your spark, and we're going to talk about those in a marriage too. But you're thinking about trading every now and then. You think about trading in everything you have for a bowl of stew. But guess what happens when you finally get the bowl of stew? You then think, I need a different bowl of stew. And it never stops. And the reason why it never stops is because you have an appetite. And your appetite only knows one word: more. I need more. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. Oh my gosh, I can never eat again. An hour later, you're in the fridge looking for the turkey and the mashed potatoes and the noodles. Which, by the way, there's no such thing as Thanksgiving without noodles. And it's the same thing with people in romance. The pleasure myth says more, more, more. I need more pleasure because you're getting dopamine hits, and it's like cigarettes. They need more nicotine just to get to the baseline level of where they were the first time they smoked the cigarette. That's why they continue to be addicted and smoke even more cigarettes, because the pleasure hormone is being released, and it's the same hormone when it comes to pleasure in romance. You're going to need to do more. That's why hand holding's not enough. That's why eye contact's not enough anymore when it used to be. Now it's kissing. Now it's this. And it leads to more and more and more because of that. So what we need to remember is this. Listen, the ultimate delusion is to believe that there's someone or something out there that's going to bring you ultimate fulfillment. And the big idea behind tonight is not to depress you. The big idea is that the more you play, I want you to play defense as well as offense. You got to have a good defense. And you need to have a defense around these myths to block them from you. Because the more you succumb to any one of these myths, the more miserable you'll be. I believe there's one out there for me, and it's not my husband. The pleasure myth, etc. You'll just be miserable. You're setting yourself up for misery. So why do I tell you these? One, knowing these myths can save you from a disaster. And an ounce of prevention is worth 1,000 pounds of cure. And 2, the next time, and in all February, I'm going to give you patterns and strategies and tactics that are positive, that are offense, that you'll be able to implement to be able to compound your happiness levels, whether you're single or married. So look, friends, we're done. Much love. I hope that 40 minutes served you well. If you have questions or comments below, I'll go back through and answer them as best I can. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week. Keep your mind right, and much love.